Go. And boom, according to that, I'm live. Welcome. My name is Hugo Simon. This is Tokyo Tonight. It's 10:30 p.m. Japan Standard Time, as it is every Sunday when I do the show. Thank you for joining me. Good to see so many people in the chat. Hope you like the new look. I was about to tweet out earlier tonight that, I'm thinking about using StreamYard because when I used it with Victor, it was so easy. And then if I travel, it's all stored in the cloud on the internet. So it'd be easy to set up and I could put all my branding on it. But I'd have to pay $20 a month or $240 a year. And I thought, well, can I do all the things that I want to do, like the featuring comments and stuff like that? Could I do that in StreamYard? And sorry, in Streamlabs OBS instead of StreamYard, which is for free. And so I was playing around with that earlier tonight, and yeah, it's pretty cool actually. I've been able to figure out how to highlight comments and whatnot, and which is sort of something that I want to do. It's nice when I'm going through uh, to be able to share with people. In fact, actually, that bright red bit, I had changed that earlier and made that so it didn't interfere with the background so much. You know what? Oh, do I make a change now? I'm going to make a little change now just to make that bit a little bit better. So I can do this. I won't mess it up. It's working really well. It's great to see everybody. Let me do this. Add source. Synth 2. Boom. I hope yeah, Aaron, you like, I'm glad that you like the background, the thumbnail for this. I made it with um, Mid-Journey this evening, just before coming in. Well, if I put this, it's going to overlay the whole screen. Well, that's okay. I can do that. Boom. Let's just drag this over the whole thing and put it at the bottom. Can I go all the way down? No, I've got to go down a bit at a time. Synth 2. I can do that. Here. Boom, that makes the comments a bit more visible. So yeah, good to see everybody anyway. Yeah, just sort of playing around with backgrounds and having these highlighted comments. So great to see everybody. Thank you for joining me. And yeah, it's been an interesting 2 weeks. Of course, we had 2.5 Voyages here last week, which was great. And we'll be doing that. So basically every fourth, whoops, what am I doing? Basically the final week of every month, we're going to do another 2.5 Voyages. And that was, yeah, it was really fun to do with Victor. It was actually nice to do a StreamYard where we could both share content that we wanted to share. That skipped me doing a show last week, which is probably a good thing because I got into the first time in ages actually on the internet. I've got a rule, never post when angry. Sometimes I post something when I get riled up by someone and I delete it right away. It's like a personal rule. And I sort of broke that rule because someone sort of found a few of my buttons. We were talking about the TPP, to which, I think is the reason that we have butter shortages. So, naturally it's a sensitive topic. And this person sort of said, you shouldn't talk about the TPP because clearly you know nothing about it. And I was like, hey, yeah, you know me. I'm down with TPP. So yeah, it ended up being till 3 o'clock in the morning with somebody who just wouldn't let go. And I regret getting into that. I tried to pull out gracefully a couple of times, but no, the other person wasn't having it. So that was something. So I'm glad I didn't do the show just after that last week. Although as a result, I mean, there's 2 weeks of topics, which of course we're never going to get through. But still, it is great to see everybody. I'm just thinking with the lighting setup here, there seems to be like really pronounced shadows. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Anyway, great to see so many people in here. Let me always try to see if I can mess this up, just sort of break everything a little bit. But yeah, anyway, rocking into the comments, and I do like that we can do this. So last week, Dan H thinking that the AI image looked like it was from Hong Kong. This week thinking more UAE or Singapore. For what it's worth, I did say Tokyo synthwave optimistic, and this is what it gave me. And it is kind of, I like it. I mean, sure, it doesn't actually look like Tokyo, but I still I like the color scheme and everything. So I'm running with it. Good to see you, Dan H. Thanks for jumping in there early. Dan H, of course, mentioning the. Oh no, that's interesting. It does cut off the comment if it's too long there. Can I fix that? I'm not going to try to fix it live, but yeah, 14 plants, 28 lines stopped for Toyota this week because they had yeah, they had some sort of an IT bug, which they insist was not a cyber attack or a hack. Although given the timing with China and everything, it feels like it could be or should be. But yeah, they had some kind of IT problem that they haven't clarified. So indeed, that was big news, and I agree. It looks like it should have been It looks like it could have been kind of suspicious, but in any case, it sounds like Toyota's overcome it. They're not known for cybersecurity, that's true. Although at the same time, they're not known for always crashing. Like they're not exactly Mizuho Bank either, but I'd be really curious. We're still waiting to find out what actually happened to Toyota and why they stopped this week. So yeah, that is an interesting one. I'm sort of standing by to see what happens with that. By the way, do as Dan H and Eric Bailey did, say my name. It looks orange to me, although it's not flashing up orange down the bottom, but I will pay particular attention to those. But good to see you, Eric Bailey. Thank you, Aaron. Nice moderator here. Nice to have you in the chat, and thank you for noticing. Indeed, and Quentin Ranked, great to see you join. My Argonauts, konbanwa minasan, good to see you. Believe in yourself, good to have you there in the chat. You've brought nums for birdies. You've brought bird snacks, I guess. That's a thing. Booyah, says Cobra Stenchi, good to have you in here. A man from Germany. PB says butter is best. Butter is like, yeah, butter is life. Butter is love. I only fight and get angry for butter. So what can you do? So yeah, my Argonauts. This is Streamlabs, just because this is free, and to be able to use all the branding and stuff on Streamlabs, I'd have to pay $20 a month, and it would still be like 780p. That's not 720p. It'd be lower resolution. I was thinking, because I'm sharing text on the screen, I want this to be 1080p. So the people, they've got to have HD. That's another thing, and you got to pay $240 a year for it. So this is free and it's higher resolution, and I can brand it myself. So I'm going to stick with this for now. So this is Streamlabs OBS. So there you go. Eric Bailey, now you kind of want to see me angry. If you dig into my Twitter from a couple of weeks ago, it's too much to delete, frankly, but I'm kind of embarrassed. You can see me trying. It's kind of interesting as well, because the person was clearly pro Hillary Clinton and anti-TPP. So, you know, the fact is, even when we got past the misunderstanding, of which there was 3 hours of misunderstanding, but even when we got past it and were perfectly clear with one another, we still would have completely disagreed. And I knew that, which is like, why am I trying to explain myself when even when I do, you're still going to like fundamentally not accept what I have to say. So who cares, you know? And I kept going. So there you go. Yes, indeed. I say a song and you guys all hear it. December Clouds. It's about that time indeed to bring back the rhythm and the rhyme. Yes, we've got Believe in Yourself testing the orange name function. It is working. That is timing out. Got to be careful of that. Although I guess the color scheme now matches the background of my wallpaper, so that's a thing. Lucas Massa, OBS is free and easy. Yeah, OBS is kind of unstable though. I mean, I don't know why Streamlabs OBS, which is just like a skin of OBS, is more stable, but it is. I tried switching to OBS and it nearly killed me. So there you go. So yeah, looks like we've got everybody in the chat here. Good to see everybody. Thank you for commenting. Do remember to say hello. And if you're new in the chat or just a lurker or whatever, do let me know where you are coming in from. It's always good to see. It is kind of a nice look with the background, even though there's a little bit harder to read than the pure black. Tell me what you think. Do you like having this new background, or do you like the old? Do you not like change? I mean, two things, I guess. Do you like the featured comments? And two, do you like the new color scheme and everything? Because obviously, I was going to say I can change it. I can put it back pretty easily, but I did make a lot of adjustments, and I should have saved this as a new scene. So now I've just realized I can't put this back easily. So maybe we're stuck with this. But anyway, leave in the comments what you think of the new setup. And yeah, it's great to see everybody rocking in. I hope you all got the notification for this. I did set this up a little bit earlier. So yeah, no, that's the thing. The cityscape is nice. Yeah, I think so too, Lucas Massa. You know, and it's kind of fun. It's fairly easy to generate. It's kind of fun to have a reason to do that each week. I do like the color palette for this as well. It all sort of goes together, if you ask me. So yeah, anyway, let's jump in. Going from tweets today, going backwards. We'll see how far we get through. There's plenty to talk about, plenty going on in the world at the moment, with Japan included. The first story I noticed on NHK tonight, they were featuring how it's kind of unusual for Russian leaders to prominently celebrate the We Beat Japan Day, which apparently is today from Russia, because of course, even after the war ended, Russia went and grabbed some extra islands and kept, as soon as they made sure that Japan was like down and defeated, they decided to start invading Japan, basically. So that was the thing that they did, and normally not much happens particularly to commemorate this day, but former Russian president, the president that is basically such a such a subservient, mentally weak, politically unambitious person that Putin trusted this guy to be his temporary stand-in sock puppet president, while Putin had to stop being president for one term to allow him to resume after. Dmitry Medvedev, who, by the way, if you follow the Ukraine conflict, as I've been doing, he's one of the he's in the government, and it seems now his term for being president of Russia, it seems like he was paid entirely in crates of vodka, and he is now putting it into like crazy nationalist stuff. He did a big speech for the defeat of Japan Day today, saying that Japan should stop being so militaristic. Pot, meat, kettle, you're black. I don't know. It's kind of Russia saying that to Japan now that Japan should be less militaristic. He also actually did a speech the other day where he was like criticizing countries that were supporting Ukraine defending itself against being invaded and done over by Russia, saying that sort of insulting countries one by one. He put New Zealand and Australia together and said that we were marsupials. To which I did tweet actually on the marsupials thing. First of all, thank you for noticing us, because a lot of countries don't even notice us, or whether they're paying us compliments or insulting. So credit to the former Russian president for noticing New Zealand. However, New Zealand doesn't actually have indigenous marsupials. They brought them from America and from Australia, possums and a few wallabies, but they're not actually indigenous. And secretly, New Zealanders wish we had animals, at least the good animals from Australia, not the dangerous ones, although even the good ones are kind of dangerous. Koalas actually are very territorial. And, when there's like a koala in another koala's tree and they start fighting, they can rip each other apart. They can actually be quite vicious. So you don't want to mess with them. In Australia, they call them drop bears. And just my warning that the former Russian president probably wouldn't want Australia sending territorial koalas into the conflict against Russians. Just a thing. You don't want to aggravate the marsupials. Not that New Zealand has any, but thank you for noticing us nonetheless. So that was the thing that happened tonight. Spectacular sunset. Nice to see. Gaiji Mummy, I talked about on the other week, I was on the Deep in Japan podcast. I did tweet about it. Hopefully, you noticed. It was like a 2.5-hour conversation. It was a really good conversation. It was a bit of, I think if you're watching this, you probably know a bit about my backstory by now. But if you want to hear that, we had a good discussion. We actually played a Sugoroku, a sort of a board game made up by the Gaijin Mami. She just posts like amazing photos she lives near Tokyo Tower. And I don't know, I just find she's like consistently the sort of content I come to Twitter for. She posts nice photos. She doesn't get into any fights. She doesn't do any political stuff. She's just always posting interesting and humorous stuff. She makes animated videos about being a foreigner in Japan. She's amazing. Anyway, so nice photo there. And on the Deep in Japan podcast, we did a board game that she mentioned, just going through my life. It was a good way of doing it, actually. It was a good podcast anyway. So if you haven't checked it out, feel free to. If you want, if only 1 hour per week of my voice isn't enough, you can listen to it. A bonus 2.5 hours of me talking on a podcast. And it was a really good conversation. It was really fun. So I did enjoy that. Taking a quick look into the comments, we've got people rocking through here. In fact, I must admit now I've got like two. I've got the comments that I'm capturing here, and I've got the comments that I'm using for selecting the picked up comment. So there's comments everywhere. I don't quite know where to look at the moment. To the side here. Cityscape is nice. Thank you for that. PB, add a Zeppelin or two to the background. Okay, that's a good call. I can probably do that. I can show you how I do that. Even I could put Discord there live and show you how I use Midjourney. If you'd be interested, would you like me to make some art live? I could do that, but that's an option anyway. But yeah, that's a good call there, PB. Arguing with a person, Eric Bailey, arguing with a person is so much more fulfilling than online. In person is so much more fulfilling than online. I agree, because I think there's that thing where you kind of have this you have to treat the other person like a human, and so yeah, I agree with that. Nobody's ever said anything intelligent with their thumbs. Would love to argue with me over a beer. I'd love to argue with you over a beer. I'd love to argue with all of you over a beer. There is that thing as well about just reading the room and checking the eyes, and at least showing that like you don't mean it personally, and having that agreement that lets you go into it for fun, and knowing when to back off, and all of that's gone from the internet. And it's very frustrating, which is why getting into fights on the internet is just bad. You should not do that. Eric Bailey, too ugly for the internet. I'm too ugly for radio, so we all have our crosses to bear. Pot calling kettle black indeed. Koalas are nuts. You send in the emus. That's a good call from Lucas Massa. Australia had 3 wars against the emus, and they didn't actually even win all of them. So yeah, the emus are badass. Those are like tactical nuclear weapons. PB, New Zealand has the giant weta bug. Seen one? I've never seen a giant weta like in the wild. They are enormous. I think they're like one of the biggest insects. I'm sure they're not the biggest insect, but they're one of the biggest like grasshoppers in the world. But they're like super slow motion. This is the thing in New Zealand. There are no predators of anything naturally, at least before. Maori came with rats, and Europeans came with everything else bad. But until then, these things could like. They're slower than like snails. They walk around everywhere, but they are very, very cute wetters indeed. They are a national symbol, but I've only seen them in like zoos and stuff like that, not in person, unfortunately. A zeppelin would be cool, says Believe in Yourself. Yeah, that's probably a good call. I should check that out. Oh yeah, I'm going to Seoul. I'm booking a trip to Seoul. Tried to book it today, I didn't succeed, so I'm going to try again tomorrow. But I'll be there on the week of the 18th. The 18th, of course, is a public holiday in Japan. But that week from the 19th through the 22nd, I'm going to be in Seoul for work. So I might not have a lot of free time. But if you're in Seoul and would like to say hello, I'll be around at that time. If we can make it work, it would be nice. I'll be staying around Gangnam. Yes, I will literally be staying there Gangnam style. It's the way I travel everywhere, of course. I'm looking forward to it. Good food, good people, lots of friends over there. So yeah, it'll be a nice trip to do. Also kind of good to get away from the extreme heat here. So that is a thing. Oh, and look at this. I've got a recommendation in my to follow of Tom Hovas, who is the person that, because of the World Basketball Championships happening in Okinawa, the Okinawa coach, I admit it myself when I first saw him on screen. There's people when they say that, oh, it's a foreigner, it looks vaguely like me. But this guy's like, whoa, he looks a lot more like me than other people who look like me. Like, trying to see, are there more photos of him? Well, he's a recommended person to follow at the moment. So, yeah, he is indeed. Where's the coach? He's up the back there. But yes, he's a very good-looking man. What can I say? And he actually speaks Japanese really well. He's very popular. So it's actually a compliment. I've had like 5 people come up to me in the last couple of weeks. Say, oh my God, you look so much like Tom Hovas, which is cool. He's a cool guy. So I take that in the positive spirit in which it's intended. Eric Bailey, send the emu to the Ukraine border. Give them feral cats as riders. Yeah. Kerberos Tenchi, maybe the wetters are like snails. They only slow down when you look at them. After all, you never see a snail coming. It's like suddenly snails. That's true. And yes, Korean barbecue. That's what I'm there for. Bulgogi all the way. Yes, we've got. We did have a weather record. In August was the first time in history that every single day in Tokyo during August was above 30 degrees, 85 degrees Fahrenheit. If you read temperature in freedom degrees. That was absolutely miserable. I mean, August is hot, but it's where it sort of starts to sort of come down a little bit, but it didn't. There was not a single day below 85, and it was high humidity, and it was awful. And I'm avoiding running in the middle of the day. It's actually still not safe at the moment. So I saw the weather forecast this week. There's kind of a typhoon coming towards Tokyo this week. It's going to be a tropical depression by the time that it comes here. I thought, great, it's going to be like raining, so it's going to cool down below 30. So I'm looking at the weather forecast. Tomorrow is going to be 150 millimeters of rain, like 8 inches of rain, but it's still going to be 32 degrees. And the warning is like actually higher than today. Although the temperature is lower, because of the humidity in the air, it's going to be 32 degree torrential rain. And they're saying it's actually higher risk of heat stroke tomorrow than it is today. So tomorrow, maybe not going, I guess it'll be like running in a shower or a bathtub or something. But there is going to be, hopefully later this week by Thursday, the first day below 30 degrees in like months later this week. So I'm very much looking forward to that. The weather has been crazy. It's been hard to deal with. Dan H, have you experience or know anything about Accenture in Japan? I used to work at Accenture in Japan. Also, Gangnam is the capital of Korea's hair transplant industry. I didn't know that. I don't know how you know that. I know plenty about Accenture in Japan, so ask away. I used to work there. So I guess that answers your question. Honestly, I'm not going to Gangnam for hair transplant. Japan and Korea, I think, both have huge hair transplant and hair regrowth industries, but it's predicated on hair, not my color. Like they use lasers and all sorts of stuff. But you know, I don't know. I'd suddenly get like a barcode across my head. I don't want that. So I'm good actually. I've got a cool shaped head. I'm more aerodynamic. It's easy to cool. It's fast to shower. I'm comfortable. As much as I would like to have the choice to grow it out a little bit more, I mean, I do actually have hair around the sides and stuff like that. Like it comes up fairly high. Sure, if I could have, I would like to have. If there was some way I could have it that didn't involve surgery, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't think I'd actually grow it out even if I had it. I don't know. I'm comfortable. Actually, I think my head shape is cool, so I don't have a huge complex about it. But yeah, always good to know stuff like that. Vicious koalas. Well, yeah, well, you know, the koalas you drop from drones. They're drop bears. You actually have to drop them from above. You have to get like eucalyptus trees and plant them all along the border with Russia. And anyone goes underneath them, territorial koalas just drop and rip them to pieces. It might actually be a violation of international treaties, but I mean, you know, they shouldn't be there in the first place, right? So have at it. Shubis, glad that you finally made it. A man from Panama made it in with some coffee. I hope that the new colors on the screen are not the result of the coffee; they're the result of me. I apologize for that, but there you go. Speech to text can be quite irritating at times. Do I have any experience of working with them in Japan? I was working with today. I spent all day today training a work tutorial on how to make a deep learning based speech to text tool, multiple language, which can do simultaneous translation. Which I'd love to show all of you, except it's work related. So if I ever leave my job, I'm going to release a whole lot of tech videos. I may even do it before then, but I do that. I actually work with, and I can't tell you what I work with because work, but I work with a company that offers all this sort of tech. So yeah, I work with it a lot. I don't know about the irritating thing. I mean, it's hard. If you look at the auto captioning, like for example for YouTube, if you turned it on right now, I must admit, like 5 years ago, the auto captioning was absolute gibberish below, especially with my New Zealand accent and mumbling and talking too fast. And the fact that I never really complete a proper sentence. I like think I'm going to stop a sentence and then I decide to just keep on going and it doesn't know whether to put a full stop in or not. It's gotten so good. At least the YouTube stuff has gotten really good. A lot of the big AI companies really do have very good captioning now. It's never perfect, but it's come a long way. So yeah, but again, feel free to fire away on that. Dan H. Lots of comments there. Rather than read each one of them, though, remember if you want me to read it, put my name in it so I pay special attention to it. But yeah, I see that Cobra Stenshi talking about what Gangnam's famous for and everybody else. Geisha is a coffee bean type out there in Panama. Well, wow. I don't know. That's just another reason to go to Panama. I'd love to do that. So yeah, anyway, Japan is going in slow decline, but it's, you know, it seems to be okay with things. There's a guy at the traffic lights and he was doing this and yeah, I don't know. It's like Japan is like not as cool as it used to be, but it's fine. So yeah, I know it's quite an image. It's kind of funny because that's a Mazda MX-5. It's actually not a tiny car. It looks tiny, I guess, because he's standing, I guess, on the armrest or something. But yeah, I think this greatly encapsulates where Japan is going. Indeed, it's sort of slowly declining, but it's fine. So there's been a kind of a viral tweet, kind of troll of the week. Someone saying, "Look at how much more Americans are earning nowadays compared to Japan," and look at, you know, nobody talks about the complete collapse and failure of the Japanese economy with people earning the same money now as 30 years ago, which is true. But in Japan, you know, for quality of life, you get medical care, you get, you know, housing is much more affordable, you're not afraid of getting shot anywhere. Like, you know, there is a thing where, yes, it's all inflation over there. And the cost of living in America would actually make me think twice about it as well. Although I did love it over there. So yeah, Japan, I mean, I agree. It's getting into fully into middle income status, but it's a comfortable middle income status. And yeah, it's kind of like this guy. Anyway, Odie Jr., glad that you made it late. Bada boom indeed, but good to have you in here. And yes, I'm good. I hope that you're good as well. Thank you for joining. Good to have you in here always. Never heard of geisha chocolate. Yeah, I must exist. It sounds like one of those things I've probably heard of, but yeah, I can't recall at this exact moment. Going back down, Yeah. What was I doing here? Oh yeah, I did tweet. Well, I think I kind of a couple of weeks ago when BBC was covering first of all the fear and anxiety about the Fukushima wastewater release around the region, and how scientists from China say that it's a bad idea. Like it looked like they were sort of just basically repeating and parroting PRC propaganda points against Japan just for like balance in the article. The Japanese government says that it's fine, TEPCO says that it's fine, but other scientists aren't so sure. And I was saying at the time, hey, BBC, you shouldn't be uncritically like basically taking the fear and horror angle, particularly when it's being played up and used by China for propaganda. And actually, some journalists actually came and said that I was being unfair to them because they put a paragraph down the bottom about the Japanese science that says it's okay, but the headline was in huge letters: fear and anxiety. So I'm kind of glad to see at least that BBC is kind of correcting now, and that there seems to be an alignment that Japan's actually done, something that I thought was nearly impossible to sell. The PR that they've been doing around trying to explain the science and give assurance that it's safe, which is what you should do. You shouldn't be playing up that this might turn everybody into three-headed monsters. Japan's kind of done at least all that it can do for explaining this, and China's clearly just opportunistically exploiting it. And it's good to see that after, if you ask me, the BBC I think was guilty of uncritically repeating Korean left-wing opposition and Chinese PRC propaganda against this. For a time, they've kind of balanced on that, and now they've highlighted how this really is an information campaign by China, as it was from the beginning, and they're not really interested in the facts, particularly when the facts, in detail, aren't that good for China. China pumps way more nuclear wastewater into the Pacific than Japan does. And the other thing is, for this dramatic, like China banning all seafood from all over Japan now, which is China's Japan's largest seafood export market. There is a thing, it's a problem in New Zealand and a lot of other countries as well. Chinese fishing fleets are kind of famous for sort of coming in to territorial waters without permits and permission, and huge fleets of ships, and just strip fishing, like cleaning the things bare, and taking all the fish out. There's no quotas, no sustainable fishing, anything like that. And this is a huge problem for Japan. These fleets of Chinese, fishing boats come in and sort of strip, they sort of wipe out all the fisheries for the Japanese fishermen. I'm reasonably sure that even if China's banning Japanese fish from coming into Japan, I'm pretty sure that, because supposedly all of the water around Japan is a nuclear wasteland. It's kind of a good test of their sincerity whether Chinese fishing boats stop looting the seas around Japan. I get the feeling those fishermen don't care. In the end of the day, when you sell the fish, you still get the money for it. People don't know where it came from. I'm pretty sure the Chinese are still eating Japanese fish. They're just getting it from unscrupulous Chinese fishermen instead of getting it imported properly. But that said, the hysteria is certainly working in China. There's been all sorts of stuff happening with that. But it's good to see some recognition of calling it what it is, basically. Taking a look at the comments. Covers Tenshi, sometimes you just have to create your own platform for your own entertainment. MX-5 is a good platform for that. Amen. I agree. It's a beautiful car. I love the MX-5. And I've never seen anyone actually stand that high in it and dance. But he's living his best life. Congratulations to him. There's been we had this week the 100th anniversary of the 1923 Great Kanto earthquake. Basically, it was a magnitude 7.9 quake that lasted 15 seconds. Now, for comparison, magnitude 9.4 in Tohoku that lasted like 2 minutes or something. It was ridiculous. And I still, now I'm working on the assumption that will happen down here. But this happened in the Sagamihara Bay off Yokohama, and it wasn't very far off the coast. So it caused this sort of massive, of course, Tokyo in 1923, very much sort of roaring 20s. Japan was actually in the process of, sort of spreading its colonies in Asia and internationalizing and modernizing. The city was still largely built out of wood, so it was susceptible both to fire and earthquake. Most of the city was completely destroyed. I believe more than 100,000 people died. Prior to World War II, it was one of the biggest natural disasters anywhere of all time. A lot of the first ever film taken anywhere was taken of the aftermath of this quake. Mainichi put up like 19 minutes of video, basically of neighborhoods that I live in and work around. Of course, completely different So it's both fascinating for seeing these neighborhoods back when they were sort of completely different, like small little neighborhoods or small villages almost, that are now like major metropolises in the middle of Tokyo. But yeah, just for those who don't know, with the quake, of course, it resulted, there was it caused, with the shape of Tokyo Bay, it's normally Chiba like protects, and Shizuoka protect Japan from tsunamis, and or protect Tokyo from tsunamis in different directions. But if you get an earthquake right at the entrance to the bay, of course, then you get a problem. When a tsunami goes into a bay, it actually pushes all the water up to the end of the bay and causes an even worse, like a magnified tsunami. And that's what happened in this case. It was just off the coast of Yokohama, and it pushed a 20-foot, which is what? It's about 3, 4. How many meters is that? 20 divided by 3, 6. It's a 6 to 7 meter tsunami got pushed up into Yokohama, did a lot of damage. There were a lot of fires. A lot of buildings collapsed. They didn't have earthquake building standards back then, and these were many of the first brick and high-rise buildings in Japan that were copied from European designs, and it was their first experience of an earthquake, and they all collapsed. The other big topic of discussion this week is, of course, also that in the aftermath of that earthquake, there were rumors going around. Basically, Japan was kind of in this paradoxical situation that it had modernized extremely quickly. It had gone from a very closed village-based society where even in Japan, you were still restricted. You weren't allowed to travel freely, depending on where you were born and your class and everything. Society was highly regulated during the Edo period. And it had become sort of very modern very quickly, but the people and the culture hadn't modernized as quickly, arguably, as the country had. Although some of the things that happened after the 1923 quake happened today, and they happened after the Fukushima quake as well, which is that this mistrust of outsiders that I think humans all inherently have, particularly when you live in small villages, like dealing with destitute people. There's kind of this dramatic, either, it's like when you see a homeless person, you either think, oh, that's somebody who needs help, and you help them, or you think, oh my God, that person looks dangerous, stay away from me. And Japan was very much cued for treating refugees of the quake as, there was a big helping campaign on the one hand, but for people like Koreans who Japan had colonized and annexed 15 years prior to this quake, or 13 years to be exact, there were a lot of Koreans who were in Japan for work, and living in Japan and so on, and they were, they didn't speak Japanese fluently, or they had accents, and they were treated with suspicion, and rumors started going around, and they were being spread around by telegraph and so on, and at times even by government officials saying, be careful of itinerant, foreign workers who are, rumor has it, are poisoning wells and lighting fires. They blamed the firestorm in Tokyo on foreigners deliberately lighting fires and poisoning water supplies and poisoning wells. And this resulted in up to 6,000 people being murdered, 6,000 Koreans being murdered. And there's actually a movie that came out recently as well that, of course, some of the victims from Kanagawa Prefecture, from more rural parts that spoke with a dialect, came into the city looking for help. But because they spoke with a dialect, that was interpreted as that people thought they were Koreans who didn't speak Japanese properly, who were trying to hide that they were Korean, but they were speaking with this sort of accent. And they were massacred as well. A whole village of refugees was massacred when they came into Kanagawa, because people saw them and thought that they were Koreans, and they were included in the massacres of Koreans. Of course, after Fukushima as well, so the same sort of rumors started going around on social media. The big difference is, and there still is a big problem, that the government hasn't acknowledged that the rumors were spread by government. But there was a case taken up on NHK. There was a news article which I saw online talking about a family who are descendants of people who massacred a Korean. They murdered a Korean who was seeking refuge in a town in Saitama. And the father pointed out that the town was sort of rallied by a message that was being distributed by the government, warning of Koreans going around poisoning wells and setting fires. And so when they saw a Korean who had sort of evacuated from the city and was sort of resting in the town on the way out, he was killed by the people in the town. And people sort of pointed out this is being spread by media and news. So this is obviously not just something that happens in Japan, but it can happen everywhere. But of course, it added to the tragedy of this enormous quake. The result is we have a much safer city today. But again, one, we should be ready for the fact that this is going to happen again. And two, this isn't all stuff in the past. One, the government still hasn't acknowledged that it played any role to exacerbate the anti-Korean massacres in 1923. The Korean governor, the Tokyo governor, still refuses to participate in memorial events for the victims of the ethnic massacres. And after Fukushima, we saw that there were still people accusing Chinese gangs of going into Fukushima to do burglaries and stuff like that. So yeah, it's one step forward and two steps back. But it's a poignant time to remember that in Tokyo, it's not really an if, but it really is 100% when. The cycle in Tokyo, I mean, we have Mount Fuji erupts every 250 years, which had last erupted 250 years ago. We have large mega quakes about once every 100 years. The last one happened 100 years ago. And recently happened up the coast, which increased all the tectonic pressure down the coast down here. So it's inevitable that we're going to get another mega quake, and we're going to get buried in ash from Mount Fuji. So that's just living in Japan. The city will be better prepared, but still, there'll be no electricity, there'll be no water. You'll have to have canned goods in the house, and that's just part of living here. So being ready for that. But that's a thing. It's a somber anniversary, but that is a thing that indeed happened. So yes, fun times. Just shave it. Join the unhair club for men. I'm good with the 2mm. I like it like this. And obviously the Japanese basketball coach agrees with me. Good to see you, BTC Chiba. Good to have you there in the chat. We've got Believe in Yourself. Isn't this how mystery metal was created in the 1950s? I have no idea. I don't know what you mean. Dan H says that one of your Japanese friends who works as a marketing analyst at Accenture recommended them to me. How is their corporate culture being a foreign company in Japan? Oh, that's an interesting one. I'll tell you what, Dan, I don't know if you can message me offline. I can probably give you a more full opinion of it offline. I worked there for 4 years. I would have worked there for longer if I hadn't had a better opportunity come along, which is where I'm at. But I would say as a foreign company in Japan, it's uniquely successful. It's more common for sort of joint ventures between local IT companies and foreign IT companies. I did used to work at Deloitte Consulting, and that kind of failed for a time. There was like an internal rebellion against the foreign managers. I think Accenture is uniquely successful at being able to navigate that sort of line between overseas and local control, which is generally partly because they allow Japan to be a bit more independent. Yeah, they do interesting work. They get interesting work. They do generally do high value consulting. So yeah, it's an interesting place to work, and I think it's the international company dynamics are a huge thing that I talked about with Rochelle quite a lot. I've got a lot of experiences of that, but I found that what happened, the system there kind of worked uniquely well. So from that perspective, I think that's a positive. And you really do get great experience there. There are pros and cons. It's a very competitive company, and the people who go there are people who are generally frustrated at Japanese IT companies. They're sort of go-getters. And that means that it's got a bit of a go-getter culture, which is good. There are really great, smart, interesting people, but there's also people who can be pushy and so on. Again, depends on your personality type a little bit, but that's why they get really interesting work. So yeah, again, message me directly if you want to ask me directly for my thoughts on it. But I will say Accenture's really interesting company, does great work. Yeah, I got great experience there. So yeah, Quinn Rankett, have you read the Tokyo government's disaster preparedness menu? A couple of times. I mean, I've read the handout. There's all sorts of different disaster preparedness materials that come around, and of course, at home, I keep a stock of water, canned goods. I know how to walk home from work. And we had a dry run of this. This is in a way where it's kind of a blessing that the Great East Japan earthquake, it was big enough that there were a couple of buildings that collapsed in Tokyo, but not many. But it was enough that we had the power outages, we had the needing to walk home, we had the supermarkets being emptied out by panic shopping and stuff like that. And it was a good wake up call to make sure there were parts of Tokyo that didn't have water for weeks, and needed to have the sort of camping toilets and everything like that. So it's a good reminder to have all of that stuff. So in a way, it was like a really good live drill of the real thing. And yeah, I haven't looked at the preparedness manual recently, but I've seen it before. So yeah, you do what you can. So yeah, anyway, continuing on. Ami Yamato, I actually ordered a cup. You're going to see a cup behind me soon. I ordered one of the Ami Yamato cups. Ami Yamato, if you know my channel, you might already know. I actually collaborated. I believe I was the first person to collaborate with her. Her channel is amazing. Do go check it out. That's actually... it isn't what it looks like at first. It looks like it's one thing, and then you look at it more and you realize it's something else. It's amazing. There's nothing else like it on YouTube, and all the stuff is really well made, and a lot of work goes into the videos. So yeah, I feel very privileged. I got to collaborate twice So highlight of my time on YouTube. So yeah, she's got some new merch out, which I think is actually really cool. So you'll see some of that behind me sometime soon. So that's a good thing. What else have we got here? ISS. I mean, that's just cool. Just like that stuff. Oh yeah, now this was cool or interesting, more than cool. A police officer who was arrested by fellow police officers. Apparently, they were doing an audit of bullets, of ammunition for guns, and apparently there was a shortage of bullets. And his fellow police officers came to the conclusion that this person must have been like squirreling them away. And that he must have been the one who stole the ammo. So they detained him and basically started interrogating him, wanting him to make him confess to being the one who stole the bullets for the police guns. And he was adamant it wasn't him, but the police basically started using threatening techniques. They said that we'll just keep rearresting you and coming up with other pretexts to rearrest you until it couldn't have been anyone else. We don't have evidence, but we know it's you. It couldn't have been anyone else. And we're just going to keep rearresting you until you confess, and we're going to ruin your life. So confess. And he confessed, and now he's suing his fellow police officers for forcing him to confess, which they did because they were lazy and they didn't want to come up with proper evidence. They just got the guy who they thought it was and wanted to make him do it. The irony of a police officer, basically suing and successfully suing the police for coercing a confession. And of course, if that guy couldn't avoid a coerced confession, how can anyone else? It kind of shows, again, the problem with the policing system in Japan in that regard. I mean, that's kind of crazy that a police officer was accused by other police officers and was actually coerced into a confession. I mean, what hope is there for anyone else? Someone who clearly understood what was going on and still couldn't withstand it, which is this thing. If you ever think that if you're ever accused of something by the police, that you would never confess to a crime that you didn't commit, especially a serious one, it happens. It happens a lot. And in Japan, it happens particularly when there's no evidence and the police just want to wrap up the case. And all they care is about is making it stick. And yeah, this happens a lot. So, it's one thing to understand and be careful of, I guess. But there you go. We've got Sainted Sir. Good to see you. Nice to see you. Do they know who stole the bullets? They don't know. As far as I know, he's claiming that he was forced to give a false confession and is suing for the emotional damage caused by that. But no, they still, I guess this is a thing as well. The police call it case closed when they get the false confession. Yeah, I mentioned before about the 1923 Korean massacres that happened, and again, more efforts to get some acknowledgement and clarity on that. And actually, the Mainichi put out an editorial saying that 100 years on, for the government to still be stonewalling on admitting that it contributed or providing documents around this is, again, something that it shouldn't be doing. And this is the video that I mentioned about a particular case, which is interesting to watch. Jeffrey J. Hall, by the way, I've got him on my short list of people that I follow on Twitter. Great account, actually. He features a lot of news that I end up retweeting, so that was a good thing. This is also just, I love old, sorry about that. This is an old map. I love old maps of this. In 1590, Edo Castle, like Hibiya, was like a cove. It was the coastline. And Edo Castle, so if you see where Edo Castle is, basically the Maru building where I used to work in Tokyo Station was in the water there in front of Edo Castle. So all of that's reclaimed land, which even by 1636, it was all reclaimed. So you can see there's the palace entrance and Tokyo Marunouchi, you can see. All of that was actually underwater and it was all reclaimed and built on. I mean, now it's quite a long way inland, but it still is crazy to me that these maps just show how different Tokyo used to be. Yes, Tokyo, over 30 degrees every day in August for the first time since records were first kept in 1875. So that's a thing that's terrible that happened. But yes, quickly taking a look at the chat, by the way. At least it's only bullets. I think last year or the year before, the German military admitted to have lost bullets and heavy weaponry ammo worth millions. Well, yeah, and who knows where they were selling it, but that is indeed a thing. I wonder what's happened there, that I can see Eric Bailey's comment up there, but not down in my comments to highlight. Oh, because effed up? Is that... I wonder if this is exercising like a... Okay, I guess I can see everything uncensored in the in the live chat, whereas I'm taking the highlighted comment from the publicly visible comment. So there you go. So anyway, how far back are we? We're not that far back, I don't think. I'm going to speed up. It's 2 days ago. That's pretty cool. They're moving, which rocket? The Ariane 6. They're moving to South America from Europe on this boat. Those are sails. They're like modern sort of sails. It's pretty cool. What else have we got here? Police in Japan are going to use body cameras starting next year, at least on trial. Again, would be really interesting to see these sort of to see these interrogations and so on if they have them. The idea for now is checking how they ask people for ID and do street like interrogations of people to see what happens with that. But there you go. PB mentioning that 30 degrees Celsius is like sweater weather for Phoenix, Arizona. Well, that's because, of course, they've been having 120 degrees or 50 degrees or whatever it is nonstop. I mean, Phoenix looks like it's actually becoming uninhabitable. Now they're getting regular weather, which like 30 years ago was like Death Valley weather. And now that's like Phoenix weather. So it seems brutal there, but you're right. Yeah, 30 degrees is just uncomfortable. It's not, but you're right. I mean, I guess different for different people. Sadiq, good to see you there in the chat. Hello indeed. Nice to see our man from Florida. Hope you're okay with the hurricane down there, by the way. I heard they had a big hurricane down there this week. What else have we got here? Let's checking out. Yes, we did it, folks. August, the first time since records started that we've had a midsummer day, 30 degrees every day this week. Yeah, both the American ambassador and the prime minister and various other dignitaries, including the minister for economy, trade and industry, have all been eating Fukushima fish this week. They've all been paying visits up there. Rahm Emanuel, by the way, I must say, like, Americans were like, oh my God, this is like the Democrat, like political enforcer devil incarnate. He's like, you know, the worst person in the world. The guy is a puppy dog. He's come to Japan. He's been just a nice man. He rides the train. His social media account is delightful. It's like a Disney movie. And he just is nice to everybody and just does nice things all the time. I don't know. I've talked before about the mellowing effect that Japan seems to have on people. I've seen it happen with famous sort of brute rugby players that come to Japan and they just become nice people after being here. But Rahm Emanuel just seems like a lovely, lovely person all the time. And I don't even mean that sarcastically. I was braced for like the bloody American Godzilla coming here to Japan. And no, it turns out he's a nice guy, and he's showing support for Japan by eating Fukushima fish, which of course is fine. In fact, actually, the thing is the water testing around Fukushima after the first round of releasing of wastewater has found lower levels of radiation. Like there's nothing more above the natural level of radiation that water naturally has. It's like undetectable impact so far in the environment. Now, long term, of course, there are concerns, but do remember that tritium, even if you were to directly ingest tritium, you know, it has a 12-day half-life. So, you know, and you won't. And everywhere it has tritium. So that is a thing. It was also interesting just to hear about the fuss when they released the wastewater thing. We talked about this on 2.5 Voyages, how apparently like in the 1990s, like Russia dropped like something like 90 tons directly of nuclear waste just straight into the Sea of Japan, just off Korea, between Korea and Japan. So, you know, this is like much worse has been done recently, but there you go. Lots of stuff about the 1923 earthquake anniversary, of course. Yeah, Tom Horvath, even my family, Tom Horvath, yeah, cool guy, rocking the do. I do appreciate it. And congratulations to the Japan team, basketball team, on qualifying for the Olympics, getting 3 wins in this World Cup, so they did pretty well. Changing environment can change the person. That is true. That is true. In fact, just coming back up the top here, I see that Cobras Tenchi has, how about the triple typhoon situation right now? Number 9 is still over Korea, while 11 and 12 are on their way to Japan. Although I think right now they're looking at the one coming to Tokyo. It's going to be a tropical storm. We are going to get a ton of rain tomorrow. I don't know. It's a thing. At least we're not getting them all at once. But yeah, we still have a long typhoon season to go yet. Of all the people who've been careful to go and eat Fukushima fish and so show solidarity and explain it's science, it's okay, it's safe, and all that sort of thing, you think that the person who would be being the most careful is the Minister for Agriculture, who is indeed, if anyone's a victim of this, it's the farmers from Fukushima, very much the breadbasket of Japan, who are suffering the reputational risk of people just being afraid, that food might be radioactive. And all the effort's been taken by the government to explain that this is wastewater, the same as any regular nuclear power plant. And it's whereas China is saying no, it's contaminated water, it's full of radioactive waste that Japan's just pumping out. It's basically treating it like it's untreated, or like they're just dumping like a truck of the stuff into the water. So China's been sort of persisting in its propaganda, calling it contaminated water, while Japan's been saying no, it's treated wastewater, it's treated water, it's safe. We're testing it, we're monitoring it, it's okay. The Minister of Agriculture, as you can see, not exactly a spring chicken, did come out and say that, yes, we're taking measures to make sure farmers are not harmed by the contaminated water release. And got sort of lambasted by everybody for using the Chinese propaganda term that everybody's being told not to use. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a thing. It's a small gaffe, but it's a gaffe. It's kind of understandable, frankly, but that is what it is. Melanie Brock, nice photo of Tokyo Tower there. Had to share that. That is a great pic, indeed. I must say, I've very much always been, Tokyo is only a one tower city, which is Tokyo Tower. But Gaiji Mummy is actually bringing me around. She takes great pics of Skytree. And lately I am finding that, I'm digging the Skytree as well. All these people, apparently, I don't know what this is about, whether they're talking about bringing, with COVID, going through a bit of another surge of having more mask mandates. I don't exactly know what this is about, that we will not comply. Something went around and lots of people were retweeting it. I'm fine with people. I wear a mask on the train. Most people on the train don't. It's about 40% on the trains, but I don't care about people. I'm wearing the mask so I don't get their germs. I don't give a shit if they catch COVID or not, honestly. Plus, also, it's just good for privacy. I must admit, when I came back from Seattle, I'd been so used to like chit chat and small talk and saying hi to strangers and having just like a sort of a movie musical sort of a day every day going around, and I'd really started to like that. And coming back to Tokyo, where nobody interacts, I found kind of brutal, but I must admit I've gotten back into the putting the mask on and grumbling and thinking screw you to people who are getting onto the train too slowly. So these people, I mean, like I said, so long as they're not heart surgeons, I mean, no one gives a shit. So that is a thing. Very pretty pick indeed, Aaron. I quite agree. And Shubis, glad not to be on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Mental poison. Yeah, that's probably a good call. I must admit, lately I'm finding Instagram is getting more. I'm doom scrolling on it more, and I hate that. I really consciously try not to do that, and I find myself doing it. So I'm kind of looking less at Instagram at the moment. I mostly just post running and exercise stuff on Instagram. I take photos when I'm out running. I do take shots of Tokyo, and that's what I do there. But when I go back to look and see how it's going, I always find myself going down a rabbit hole, and I agree, it's not healthy. It doesn't feel healthy. Sainted Sir, I think that's kind of, I don't know what the hell is up with them, but good luck to them. I mean, I don't care. Big news in Tokyo. Some of the ticket gates, I mean, this is kind of crazy now if you look at this. How many different ways are there now to pay for a train? I'm pretty sure it's getting close to the point we just lie on top of the ticket gate and it just does a full body scan. But yeah, there's a train line. The Den Toshisen in Western Tokyo has introduced using credit cards. Some people saying, well, so what, you're going to have to pay a credit card fee every time you like tap to use the train? Apparently what they're going to be doing is that you prepay for a day pass, and it will, instead of charging it when you use your credit card, it'll just use your credit card chip to recognize as like an ID to record that you use the train and that you've prepaid, rather than actually charge as you go through. And apparently that allows you to go through quickly. So it's a good idea. I've heard that there are really good implementations of using credit cards on train systems in UK and so on. I can understand why that would be very difficult in Tokyo because there are so many train companies. But as much as this looks like a Frankenstein's monster setup of different ways to pay, I do very much like the IC tap, which I have in my phone, which is enough. And even this, like, you can pay with Apple Pay, Google Pay, you can pay with PayPay. It's like a million different ways to pay with this. But credit cards, particularly aimed at tourists, making it easier for tourists who don't know, how to navigate paying for all of this, is it's a pretty good development. So curious to see if that catches on and you can start to use credit cards more. But yeah, the Australians are buying Fukushima food, and like everyone's making a bit of a performance, which I must admit even made me think of the Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns was going to eat the three-eyed fish. Um, but yeah, everybody's eating it. It is delicious. I'm eating out. If you eat out in Tokyo, you are eating Fukushima food, because while they won't in the supermarket, they're not selling a lot of Fukushima food in the supermarket, because even for supermarket shoppers, even people that want to support Fukushima, of course, if you had a choice between Saitama and Fukushima stuff, people are going to go for the Saitama stuff. But what is happening is that all the Fukushima stuff is getting sold wholesale. The wholesale stuff is used in cooking in restaurants and cafeterias, so you don't know where it came from. It is affordable, and basically because the Fukushima stuff is the most plentiful, they're one of the biggest, like the Texas of Japan in terms of growing food. They grow like a lot of food for the whole country. If you eat out in Japan ever, if you go eat from a convenience store, if you eat at a restaurant, if you eat at a cafeteria, you are eating Fukushima food. And if you are still alive, it means you survived. So congratulations. And based on that, there's no sort of avoiding it. And this is the whole thing. For me, why are they making a big performance out of eating food in a way that sort of is elevating, like there's a danger or a special thing about it, when it's not? Everyone's eating this food all the time. I don't hesitate to eat out at all. And I don't ask the restaurant where they source their fish or their meat or their vegetables from. So if you're in Japan, you're eating it and you're fine. And it is all thoroughly tested. And this is all being thoroughly monitored. And it's one of those things. If you don't want the risk, there's risk to everything in Japan. I know people left Japan when the Tokaimura nuclear accident happened. I know plenty of people who left after the big East Japan earthquake. If you're afraid of earthquakes, volcanoes, nuclear accidents, Japan is a disaster bowling alley. But if you're here, it's just one of those things that we live with. And everybody's in the same boat and has an incentive to make sure it is safe. And so far, other than some mild receding hair, I'm fine. So, some people say, well, it's not that, it's going to get you years later. But again, the stuff that we're talking about has a half-life of 12 days. So even if you, in the worst case, that you actually directly have some of the contaminated wastewater, which, by the way, actually is sufficiently treated, although it's salty, you wouldn't want to drink it, but it is sufficiently treated that it meets drinking standards for radioactive material. So, it's as safe as you can get. So I'm okay with it. Huge congrats to India. So cool that they got this thing to land on the moon. So cool watching it land. I mean, they were practically showing off at the end. When you think that the Japanese private company, the Russians, the Israelis all failed at landing a probe on the moon, and the Indians just nailed it. It's super, super cool just seeing what they've been doing. What else is going on? We're 3 days into the week. I'm going to try to speed up. We've got like a couple of minutes left because I started a little bit late. Yeah, lots of stuff, of course, on the... Oh, yeah, I switched my paying for YouTube Premium. YouTube Premium is awesome. I do pay for it. I have no ads. I can download on my phone so I can watch videos when I'm out and about, like on airplanes or in the subway, without having to pay for connectivity, which is awesome. However, Google sent a note to everybody who's paying for it that, hey, if you're paying for this on iOS, you're paying 30% extra. If you pay us on the internet, you can avoid the Apple tax and pay 30% less. So I did that this week. And as a result, I'm basically, this all adds up to the point that in 200 years from now, I can buy a new Lamborghini. And that is what I will do. Somebody making fun of people stretching like this before running. I stretch like this before running all the time. I've lived in Japan for most of my life. So to me, it's kind of, what's wrong with this? This versus Japan insists that this is pointless. To which I say, no, this is science. Maybe I'm wrong. I do know that I have pulled Achilles and I've injured myself after not stretching when running, and I see a correlation. So I do follow that. But yeah, just seeing there's no other comments aimed at me right now. I'm gonna yes, very important comment there from Aaron. Hit the like button, like it owes you money. Yes. Is that politically correct? I'm not sure, but do hit that like button if you like. If you like, I appreciate it. Of course, no ads on this. I'm just doing this for likes and peanuts. So I do appreciate the support. Oh yeah, speaking of hitting it, that's what I was doing this week. It's been nice doing some Muay Thai. I've been running around the palace from the gym. I can actually run around the palace and come back and do some training. Did some super light, like shadow there with my coach, but that was some fun. What else is going on? Japan off to the World Cup starting next week. Is New Zealand going to win? Well, we got hammered by a record amount by South Africa, although you never read too much into the pre-World Cup games. But I don't know. I'm not confident as a New Zealand fan, which maybe is a good thing because we always go in overconfident. But South Africa's looking good. France is playing at home, and France has never won the World Cup before. They're like the best team that's never won the World Cup. So I'd say it's probably between those two countries, but we'll see what happens. Japan now looking at seriously considering a joint custody system for divorce, basically allowing both parents access to their kids, including the non-custodial parent access to kids after divorce. Doesn't exist in Japan right now. Kind of insane that it doesn't exist, and when you think of all the harm it causes children and parents. But yeah, it's good to see that they're finally looking at legislating for that. New AirPods looking to be coming out. That is going to be, I think, September 11th. I think is the date that they're doing the new Apple event. So I'm looking forward to. I'm not going to get a new phone, but I do love the AirPods, and I might get a new set of those. Lots of buzz about the train, about paying by credit card like that person is doing. That was pretty cool. I got Wordle in one hit. My first word in Wordle is audio. I use that so I can figure out what vowels are in it and then sort of decode it. But this week I thought it was broken. I typed it in and it was like done. I'm like, no, I'm not done. I want my other turn. First time ever that I hit Wordle first round. So I feel very, very excited about that. I'm currently on like a 70-day streak. It's honestly not even that hard anymore, actually. I said that. I'm probably going to fail it tomorrow, but there you go. And that's pretty much it. Got through most of the week. Yeah, the Johnny's thing, the independent report came out and said, yes, he was a child molester and everybody knew it. Oh, this is hilarious. This is good. Apparently in a fishing village, they actually have in the convenience store photocopy machine. This is the last story for tonight. They have a sign on the photocopy machine asking people, please not to photocopy fish on the shared photocopier. So you can kind of understand if you're a fisherman, you catch a really big fish and you want to like preserve it for posterity. People are coming in and sneaking it into the photocopier and photocopying the fish to replicate the size. It's actually a really great idea, but apparently it's causing problems because people are probably photocopying important family documents and it's coming out covered in fish scales. So yes, Fishing Village 9/11 problems. By the way, that is the Deep in Japan podcast that I was in last week. So do go and check that out if you're interested in getting more Hiko. Although honestly, I don't know how much more of me anyone can take in a week, but that's there. So there you go. Black Tengu, glad that you can make it. Glad that you could all make it. Thank you for joining me this week. Hope that you like the new layout. I like it. I think I might brush it up a little bit, but I do like the setup. I do like being able to feature comments. I'll be able to do that. Dan, yeah, hit me up if you want to hear more about Accenture, but I'd recommend it. It's a good place to work. At least they aren't sending butt pics. Well, I don't know. I mean, they could be fish butts. So there you go. This is a test to see if YouTube can see your comments or has put you in timeout again. Testies. I think that's the problem. I think because I'm doing the featured comments from I don't see that you're in timeout, by the way. I think it's just hiding where you've used certain language from the public feed, which, by the way, I've got all of that turned off, so I don't know why it was doing that. But yeah, that's a thing. Anyway, thank you everybody for keeping me company. I was going to play some music tonight, but yeah, I don't know how to set it up, and I'm over time, and it's late, so I'm going to do that later. Stop contaminating the photocopier, Karen. Yeah, it's kind of Karen's kind of a Japanese name. I guess it works. Anyway, thank you for keeping. Remember, you can follow me on X. I hate calling it X. It's still Twitter to me. And I'll be back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a good week. Stay safe, stay cool, stay warm if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Enjoy that coffee in Panama, and peace. Have a good one. See you later. Remember to like if you liked. I do appreciate it. In fact, I'm going to put that up there again. Boom. Have a good one, everyone. Ending stream. Boom. Oh, second boom. I got to click it twice. So now I'm going to end stream again now. Okay, so serious this time. See ya. Bye.